What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Eddie explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Hello and welcome to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm your host, Tony Sweet.
And I'm Eddie Connor. Welcome, everybody. Tony, do you know what always seems to go hand in hand?
Eddie, what is that?
UFOs and mysteries. And when we're speaking about UFOs, our minds will often jump to Egypt or even the ancient aliens with the question, did UFOs or these aliens have an influence in building the Great Pyramids of Egypt?
To answer these questions and more, we have the author of The Genesis Race, Our Extraterrestrial DNA, and the True Origins of the Species.
I know. Will Hart is here to talk about his book and why most historians focus on Egypt, but not so much the rest of North Africa or the Canary Islands when it comes to these UFOs. Is there a connection, and will we find out?
Good question. Well, during our interview, I'll be sharing pictures of locations that Will be sharing with us. And for you people on iHeartRadio and iTunes, simply go to our YouTube channel, Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie.
And a little bit more about Mr. Hart. He is a widely published journalist and author. His work has appeared in Atlantis Rising, New Dawn, Nexus, UFO Magazine, and Sierra Heritage, to name a few. Will also has a second volume titled Cosmic Ancestry, which is being released in 2016, plus his recently released Alien Civilizations. All are available on Amazon.com, Tony. So please put your hands together and welcome journalist and author, Mr. Will Hart.
Hello, Will.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the introduction.
You bet. Well, it's for somebody that like yourself that sticks his neck out there and really does the research. That's an honor for us to have people like yourself on the show. Because again, I tell people I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiast. I'm a person that loves to learn from the people we have on, so we can pass it on to our listeners. So. Well, let's get started there. And figure out, how did you get started in this journey of yours, where seeking out your own questions to be answered?
Well, at one point I was just like you, and actually in my late 20s, I had an experience. I don't usually talk about this part of my autobiography, but I will. I had an experience observing a UFO.
Oh.
Fairly close range, but it was not, a close encounter of the third kind or anything. And of course, that ends any doubt. And after that, you have so many questions that they go in all directions. And I became very interested. Eric von Daniken came out with his book, and I read that. And I became very captivated by ancient mysteries.
Right.
And not just from the perspective of ancient astronauts, but just ancient history in general. And that's been my passion, really. But it started there, and then I went to Mexico. I decided to begin my journey of discovery in Mexico, and I spent about a year in Mexico, traveling to every pyramid location, every museum, everything. And to be honest, for the most part, I didn't find the ancient astronaut connection until I got to Teotihuacan. And there, that site is so overwhelming. And if you can pull that up, you might
Sure.
want to. Well, it's a massive site. It was one of the last ones I went to after visiting Mayan sites and Monte Alban. Just sites all over Mexico, Palenque. That site was just so overwhelming that I felt totally different there. I really, truly felt an alien kind of energy that it just didn't feel like it was on human dimensions. And then one fact just stuck out, just grabbed my attention, and that was at the top of the Pyramid of the Sun, they discovered a sheet of mica. And they pulled it out, and that was about 100 years ago. They did the excavating, and the archaeologists pulled it out and actually sold it.
Oh, really?
But then they found another. They
Wow.
found another sheet underneath a temple they call the Mica Temple. You can still visit it there. That sheet is still there underneath the floor, and I know what mica is used for. I know it's basically an insulator, a shield for electrical energy, radiation, heat, so on. So that really got me thinking. That was the first thing down there, aside from the big Olmec heads down in Villahermosa. Yes, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great shot. I climbed up that, and it was one of the last pyramids. I did not feel like climbing up any more pyramids at that point.
I bet.
Um, and that site, it just goes on for a mile and a half. I mean, it's really hard to believe until you get there. So that's really kind of how my journey began. It kind of went from a UFO experience into von Daniken, who kind of raised all these issues and pointed all these ancient enigmas out that people were not aware of in those days. We're talking now back in 1970. And I spent my time in Mexico in 78. I met a tribe way down in the rainforest jungle. I learned a lot from them, and that just got my journey going. And I've been doing it ever since then. I mean, we're talking about a journey here.
Well, let me ask you, when you said you visited many pyramids and sites in Mexico, just looking at it and seeing evidence, you said there was not a lot until you got to, how did you spell how do you spell the other one you said that you really saw kind of evidence and markings of ancient aliens?
The Olmec site, that's where the giant heads that have an African.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know those heads.
Yeah. So,
and those, what intrigued me just as much as what you find there. Everybody focuses on those heads, but what you find there is all of the ethnic groups are in the statues. It's not just Africans.
right.
You can see Caucasians, you can see Jews, you can see a mixture, and which is very surprising because archaeologists don't know what to make of that. They're not supposed to be there.
Now, like physically, how did you feel? Was there kind of an overwhelming feeling, spiritual feeling that you felt more connected there? That maybe I know because Eddie is an amazing psychic, and did you feel more of a connection just because of the evidence, or actually the way you felt?
The frequency.
The way I felt, it was beyond intellect. It's really an engulfing kind of feeling, and it is hard to put it into words.
I bet.
You just have this sense that you're looking at something and feeling something that's extraordinary, that's out of your normal domain.
So, Will, can we go back for just a second to when you were in your 20s and you actually had the UFO experience where you were close to it?
Right.
Describe the feeling you had there. Was there a similarity with the energy you felt inside of yourself when you saw that first spacecraft? Was it similar to how you felt when you were on the pyramid?
Well, that experience, of course, it was totally unexpected. So
Yeah.
I was stunned. I was not frightened, but I was stunned. And it was also awe-inspiring
Wow.
because it's just an awesome experience. It's out of your normal realm.
Yeah.
So your brain just doesn't know what to make out of it, and you're just completely concentrated. It was a little different at the pyramid because it was a much longer duration.
Okay.
I really got immersed in it.
I would think also coming down off the pyramid, I would think you would be pretty wiped out from the inside out just based on the frequency at the pyramid itself.
You're absolutely right. It's a draining kind of feeling.
Yeah.
It's actually exhausting. You spend a day there and you're quite exhausted.
I love to take people to Machu Picchu, and I do that about every 5 years. And a lot of times people who are not as sensitive to energy. They'll talk about having that experience on Machu Picchu as well, because there's a lot of quartz crystals and all of the stones. But there is a resonating, invisible life force there that's so high that it can beat you up if you're not mentally and physically prepared for it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because after about 8 or 9 months down in Mexico, going to these places, I started to really notice the shifts in energy when I was around certain artifacts and pyramids and so on.
So, okay, when in 2003 you released a book, The Genesis Race,
Yes.
our extraterrestrial DNA and the true origins of the species. What inspired you to write that? Because, you know, just experiencing a location and feeling a connection doesn't always put words on paper. So what actually inspired you to write that?
Well, I did a lot of research, and in taking what, let's say, the Sumerians, or which was a civilization, and when you look at the civilization, you have to ask yourself, okay, I'm looking at a ziggurat, a 20-story tall, massive, very sophisticated architecture and engineering involved in it. We have supposedly our first human civilization invented the wheel, invented writing,
Right.
invented metallurgy. Well, where did all this come from? So then you start asking yourself, well, where are the antecedents to it? Where are the precursors to it? Why do we find a 20-story ziggurat and not a 3-story ziggurat and a 5-story ziggurat and a progression like we're used to in civilization the last 2,000 years? We know exactly from Rome to now what happened, but we cannot figure out what happened 2,000 years earlier. That these things all of a sudden crop up. Well, that's one way of looking at it, where that's where the ancient astronaut thesis comes in, because it doesn't look like early human beings who were still Stone Age could create such a thing. How are they going to do it? With how are you going to create bronze as the first metal? It's an alloy.
Mm-hmm.
It's an alloy. It takes a specific chemistry, a percentage of tin to copper. Well, how are Stone Age people going to figure this out? And how do they even know where tin is? Tin is not easy to find. Copper is.
I bet.
So you start getting these questions just cascading. That's what happened to me. And I was asking, some people, and they still do, are looking at the massive megalithic structure in Peru, in Turkey, and so on. That's just one part of history, one part of archaeology. I wanted to look at the whole thing. Where did agriculture come from? What do the Sumerians say? Now, the Sumerians take credit for nothing.
Really?
They give the credit to another race. Our own scholars give credit to the Sumerians, which I find ironic.
Yeah, that they didn't even take the credit for themselves, but yet we want to put it all on them. Wow. And so when you started writing this book, and I love your book cover. It's amazing, from the colors to from the pyramids to even the stone face. It looks like almost like a dragon itself. But when you started writing that, what was some of the issues that you ran into when it comes to either people discouraging you? Because I know you've had to not just go to these sites, but you probably had to consult other scholars, or did you?
I did a lot of reading. I dig through everything. I will look at archaeological reports. I will look at scholarly dissertations. I will read popular things. I got whatever I could. And then asking my own sets of questions, because I found that a lot of times when the scholarly and the academic community, once they get a theory and it's been around for a while, they don't budge on it. Let's face it. I mean, I can show that the Great Pyramid could not have been built by ancient Egyptians with Stone Age tools, and that's all they had. They didn't even have the wheel. They had copper tools, which won't penetrate granite, and we have plenty of granite in the Great Pyramid. They were just essentially just a step above Stone Age. And you say, well, how could they do this? And it's the same thing as with Sumeria. Where are the 3-story pyramids that they had to experiment on, that the stonemasons had a learning curve on, so they perfected their art? We find none of that. Where are the cities? If this is a civilization, where are the cities that we can look at and go, there's a government building? We don't see anything. All we see is these massive edifices staring at things that seem incomprehensible, and they are incomprehensible. The Great Pyramid, and I found a report done by a forensic engineering firm that Egyptologists hired, and I was able to find it in the 1990s or 2000. I can't find it anymore. I think they pulled it off the internet.
Yeah.
And they said, the forensic analyst said that the base is so flat that it's equal to what they would do with laser technology now. Now that's just, we're almost getting in a stupid state. When you're forced to be thinking that the Stone Age people, hoisted these things around. There it is. Well, that's the second pyramid, I think. No, that's the Great Pyramid. That they were using ropes, and they were using, they didn't have a pulley, they didn't have a hoist, they didn't have the wheel. And you're trying to imagine this, and that's just it. We're forced to use our imaginations, because logic, any engineer is gonna show you that, well, no, you can't do this. How are you gonna lift up a 70-ton slab of granite 150 vertical feet into the air? How are you gonna do that?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to
But
me.
here's where we get stuck. It's politics. It's not science. Our historians and academics are not doing science. They're playing politics. They won't. I've challenged them repeatedly. Let's have a debate. Let's have a debate. You show me that somebody could lift up 450 tons, which is the largest statue in Egypt that had to be lifted up. And we only built a crane when NASA needed one for, I think it was the Challenger.
Yep.
That could lift 450 tons. That's only been done in the last 20 years. So I make those kind of comparisons. I like to draw people's attention to an earth mover. That has a 250-ton capacity. That earth mover has a 13-foot wheel. It's a massive structure. It can't go on a highway. And yet it's only rated to 250 tons. And when we look at Lebanon and Baalbek, we have 1,000-ton stone there. 800-ton stones used in the foundation. Who moved it, and how did they do it? They're simple questions.
It's when you speak about the and we agree.
Yeah, we do.
Because
agree.
we've heard it a lot, and it makes total sense. It's one of the few things that makes a lot of sense when it comes to textbook reality versus what you guys know. But how much of it is politics, and how much is it religious things tied into politics at the same time?
I agree. It's all, I tie the religion. The religion is part of the politics. If you take Egypt, for example, you have these thick, intertwined politics between Arab nationalism, Islam. Okay, they have a certain agenda. They want, the Arabs built the, well, no, there wasn't just the Arabs. The people that we're going to talk about, the Berbers were part of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
The Ethiopians were part of Egypt.
Yeah.
Well, the Arabs don't really like that. They like to keep it. Now,
yeah.
The agenda works because Western scientists go, well, we don't want a very old date, and we don't want something other than just the simple Egyptians building these pyramids. So everybody works together then, and you see how much they control Egypt. I mean, they'll control an archaeologist steps out of line, they get kicked out.
Yes, they do.
It's not just alternative history people. If you just, step out of line a little bit, they pull your license. You can't do anything.
And then you're blackballed, and then you can't get a job. And then it's like, if you have integrity and you step forward like you're doing, then you have to be pretty much an independent contractor out there sort of swinging by the seat of your pants, doing your magic and getting the information to us. And so were you, when you were first going into all of this, Will, and you would go into the tribes in the rainforest and different things, and you're speaking to the locals who have, storytellers for centuries, isn't it amazing how they accept openly the truth about what those structures are versus what modern cultures accept and don't accept?
Well, yeah, they don't have our conditioning, and that is our problem. We get these little seeds planted in our heads about history, and very, very much of it is false or half true. That was a Mayan tribe that I was in the rainforest with, and they're called the Lacandone, and they're very traditional. They look just like the ancient Maya. You would think somebody walked off a stela. With tunics, they had white tunics, knee-length tunics on, everybody in the tribe. And that was a marvelous experience, and I learned a lot. And the Maya, if you go back with the Maya, they basically say that their remote ancestors came from the Pleiades.
Wow.
Now they have, and if you look at, how complex their calendar system is, and we went through the 2012 thing, and I tried to warn people that the message that I got from them that I actually published in 2004 in Atlantis Rising was, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of a system of things. It's the end of the way that humanity's putting things together. Yeah. And we can see that even in the last 3 years. The Earth now, the world system is changing so fast. I think we all feel that.
Oh, definitely, yes.
And it's not that humanity's going extinct or something. It's just these vast changes, and there's a tug of war going on. Well, I hope I answered that. You didn't go too far off the track.
No, you never go too far off the track. That's the fun part about all of this, because I feel like if people would look inside themselves just a little bit more and listen with their heart and their gut instinct, they're going to hear things differently than they do when they listen to their ears, with their ears, and they're going to hear and feel the truth differently than they would if they're watching the same TV show, the same news outlet, the same papers that are saying the same thing over and over and over until you just want to throw a brick through the wall.
That's right. You're right. You have to get away from the media. They're broadcasting these messages, and if you're paying attention, that's what you're getting saturated with.
Yep.
And then if everybody in your culture, it's interesting to me that, I happen to be in Mexico. And down here, I can talk to anybody about anything, any of the ancient mysteries. Everybody's fine with the UFOs, fine. It's just, another topic, interesting. And when you're in the U.S., it's not the comfort zone is not there. You almost feel like, can I talk about this with this group of people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or am I going to get that tensed up?
That look.
Yeah.
And the look, exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, I had a business meeting today, and of course, it goes to politics because that's what we're immersed in right now in North America. And I didn't bring up Bernie Sanders this time. I did not. But somebody at the table did, and they said, it's a shame that he's not as far ahead as he is. I said, do not watch Fox News. And do not read the papers here. Ask anybody who lives outside of the country, and you're going to see where he's a little bit ahead of every single person. But, of course, they're not going to show you that here. You can't even talk about politics here without a lynch mob coming after you.
That's true.
It's true. It's gotten very tense in the U.S. right now. And, it's interesting to me that, we're talking about our ancient history, but then you find out that everybody – if we're talking Egypt or whatever country we go to, even America, it's loaded with politics. Early America, the civilizations, there were mound builder civilizations there, not just tribes, which the founding fathers characterized as savage, so they could destroy them. It's just a fact. That's a fact. That's what they did for manifest destiny. So we have to look at what the Spaniards did. They went into Mexico, they destroyed everything. They were the barbarians. They came in, Well, what did they do? They flipped it around. They characterized the Mexican, the Aztecs, and all the tribes here as savages.
Yeah, and the same.
That's how you justify it, right? You demonize the people, then you can go in and do anything and get away with it. And it happens all over the planet. That's ISIS is doing their own version of it now, but Islam's done it. Christianity had a turn at it, and it's getting old now. We got to catch up with the game here, that's going on, because
we definitely hope we can.
it's sad to me to look around the planet, if you really study it, and I do, that so many, the vast majority of sites have been destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I mean, they're in a state of total decay, and these were beautiful. We miss the grandeur. These places were incredible in their day, and we're still impressed, and all we're looking at is ruins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take just about a minute break. We have to talk about our sponsor here in a second. We're talking with Will Hart. He is the author of The Genesis Race, our extraterrestrial DNA and the True Origin of the Species. And when we come back from the break, I really want to talk about, because most of the time most of the time we talk about Egypt and the Mayan, but like Will brought to our attention that the Canary Islands in North Africa, we don't really talk about that area that much, where there's significant amount of ancient sites and pyramids that most of us don't even know about. So definitely would love to have your opinion on that. So, well, this is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
And we're going to be right back with more of Will Hart. Don't go anywhere.
A head of cauliflower costs more than a gallon of gasoline in most areas. The FDA doesn't require food processors to tell us where our food comes from. What's worse is some of these garden seeds you purchase in the stores have been crossed with bacteria known to kill certain insects, therefore making every cell in the plant a pesticide. Fact: you can't wash these pesticides off before eating. By selling hybrid or genetically modified seeds, the major seed companies make more money knowing the farmer will have to buy their chemicals and seeds every season. What is the answer? Heaven's Harvest. Heaven's Harvest offers 38 different varieties of seeds to plant in your own garden. Heirloom or non-hybrid vegetable seeds have not been genetically modified or altered in any way. These seeds have been used by gardeners and small farms for generations and will continue to grow a healthy plant year after year. These are the seeds by God's design. Go to truthbetoldseeds.com and order yours today. That's truthbetoldseeds.com. Truthbetoldseeds.com. Get your heirloom kit and be secure.
Yes, this is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie, and these seeds are carefully developed to be healthy, hardy, and productive, and to produce more seeds, not like GMO or many other modern hybrid seeds. This is one-time kit for one lifetime of food.
That's right.
Get it at truthbetoldseeds.com. We are back, and Eddie, I want to let you introduce our guest again.
Will Hart is a widely published journalist and author. His work has appeared in publications like The Atlantis Rising, New Dawn, Nexus, UFO Magazine, and Sierra Heritage, to name a few. Now, Will has a second volume titled Cosmic Ancestry, which is coming in 2016. Plus, he has a recently released book, Alien Civilizations. And now we want to segue back in after our break and talk about the Canary Islands and what Will has found out as a result of his journalism there.
All right, Will, you are back, and thank you so much for being here on Truth Be Told. So far, this is a very fascinating interview and just conversation, and I hope so many people out there are learning from what you're giving us today. So,
well, thanks for having me, and I like your sponsor there. That was a good message.
Oh, sure, anytime. Well, I think it is. It's survival kit, and it's being prepared for who knows what's going to come, because we kind of get caught up in.
Yeah, so if we have an atomic bomb, you can have a can of seeds. We're joking. Don't tell the sponsors, Will.
No atomic bomb, please.
Please. No. All right, so let's go ahead and get on our jet plane and fly over to Northern Africa, and tell us about Northern Africa and the Canary Islands, how significant that location is.
The Canary Islands lie off the northwest coast of Africa, and in the 15th century, Spanish sent some galleons over there to see what was going on, and what they found was an indigenous culture actually inhabited every one of the islands. And the interesting thing about the culture was they looked like Europeans. This is what surprised the Spaniards, is they were white. They had light hair, and there's a lot of chroniclers who've described them white, red, blonde, auburn hair. But they didn't speak any language that the Spaniards could, interpret. They were called the Gancha, and the Spaniards abused them badly, but that's what the Spaniards did wherever they went. These people, there's a couple of mysteries about them, and one is they're on these islands, 7 islands, but they're not sailors. They don't have boats. They didn't go between the islands. They were farmers. They weren't really fishermen. Of course, they fished a little bit, but they were not really fishermen, let's say like in the Hawaiian Islands, the Polynesian people, which is odd. They had their own breed of sheep, a small stock, and they hadn't even traveled between the islands to the other Gancha tribes, so they couldn't even understand. They had been isolated for so long, they didn't understand each other's dialects. Even though they spoke the same language, a magazine, they couldn't understand each other. That's pretty mysterious, really. The other thing that the Spaniards found was they found pyramids. This culture built both stone pyramids. They built stone houses. They also lived in caves, but not natural caves. They carved the caves right into the mountainside. They had rooms. In fact, people live in them today. They just, upgraded them. They put electricity in. These caves are really pretty nice.
Wow.
These were not real unsophisticated. We're not talking about hunter-gatherers. We're talking about a fairly high culture. Now, they also mummified the dead, and that's right. Good shot. They also mummified their dead in a similar method to what the Egyptians ended up using. Now, more recent studies have shown, both DNA studies and language studies and everything, that they're actually related to the indigenous people of North Africa. Yes, that's one of the mummies there. I think she had reddish hair.
Yeah, that's a great picture. I mean, that is a great picture there.
Now, the tribe is called the Amazigh, known as the Berber in modern times. Actually, since about Roman times, they've been called Berbers. They were characterized the same kind of way, kind of in a derogatory way, by the Romans. They were conquered so many times. Is the Islamic wave hit them in about 700 AD, and I'm talking about North Africa in general now. So we have the Gancha there. They were living. They had their farms. They had their habitations, stone. They had their religion. And it was pretty much, a nature worshiping kind of religion, very connected to nature, and a kind of a balanced matriarchal, patriarchal society where women had quite a bit of power. Men were making day-to-day decisions, but women would decide who the king was going to be, who the leader was going to be. Now, the Amazigh over in North Africa, if we think about Egypt called everybody to the west Libyans. Everybody to the west was Libyans, and the way they depicted them was the same way. These were white people. They even show them in their artwork. You can see where they have 4 different types in ancient Egypt. There were white, there were brown people, there were black people, and kind of in between. And so the Libyans are basically the Gancha, the Amazigh people. That's one, but they are splintered into many, many different tribes. They never unified and created, the kind of abstract state that Western civilization did.
Right.
They've stayed in a tribal sense this whole time. These people across now, I don't know if you've probably seen them, the Tassili caves.
Tassili?
I've heard of it.
Tassili. The Tassili is Tassili. And these are the caves where thousands of ancient aliens of very sophisticated artwork, cave artwork,
Oh, okay.
exists. And you find just these incredible depictions of different kinds of aliens. They don't look human at all.
Wow.
And it was these people that did it. They also found a mummy in Libya of a woman. She's Caucasian looking. She has light brown hair, and she's older than any mummy in Egypt. Yes.
Wow.
That's the Tassili.
That's beautiful.
So now we're talking these people. Okay, where did they come from? I don't want to go too deep into this because it's a whole, you know how when you bring up Atlantis, it's like
Right.
Yes.
got a whole big 9 yards there to go through. But where do these people now? We got to bring in this other aspect of it. Okay, we have this white group with their own kind of culture. It's not really European. Where do they come from? I am working on a book now, and I can't go, into all the threads and the areas that I'm researching because I still have a ways to go. But it seems pretty logical and obvious to me that these are the people from Atlantis.
Oh.
They immigrated first to Western North Africa. Then they went across North Africa. Now we're talking they've dated them back in North Africa 12,000 years, which is about the time we know that a cataclysm happened. And that whole area was changed around. Now we have a lot of things going on at once. We have that cave art. We have the beginnings of agriculture in North Africa. And I want to bring in the DNA because there's two groups. There's two groups that look like Europeans. They don't have DNA or blood groups like Europeans at all.
Right.
They have totally different DNA that divides them, and it's called the Berber marker. That's what anthropologists call it.
And before you get into that, I want to show another picture. And again, the people that are just listening to the podcast, not watching it, this is a picture. Is that actually one of the cave drawings?
Yes.
Because that honestly looks like an alien. It looks like a flying saucer in the sky. In the background. So this is fascinating. I mean, if to see something like this. Anyway, I just saw that and I'm like, I have to show.
That's mind
There are
blowing.
a lot of those. There are a lot like that there in the Tassili.
Really?
Now the Tassili, we're talking about a region now. You know what it's like now. The politics of the day. We're talking about Libya.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't really go there now.
Oh.
You can't go. You can't go. Westerners just can't go there.
That's too bad.
The tribes have gotten so overrun, and there's so much conflict that they won't let anybody in. So.
Anyway, back to the DNA. Sorry.
Yeah, and the DNA is when we're talking about, and there's so much controversy and misinformation about Rh negative blood type. These are the people, two groups, the Berbers, the Canary Islanders especially, and the Basques, that have the highest frequencies of Rh negative blood in the world.
Wow.
Now, if we go back 600 years, most of the world had no Rh negative. Zero. Most of the world had zero. The Americas had zero. Sub-Saharan Africa had zero. Asia had zero Rh negative. It was concentrated in these two groups and in Europe. So North Africa and Europe. And with the kind of the center being, there you go, that's O negative.
That's crazy.
I know.
And O negative, it's real simple. When you look at, if you look at the comparison between O negative and positive and O and the AB types, you can see the mutations because on the red blood cells, when it's smooth like that and there's not a mutation, that's O negative. That's the simplest, and I say the original blood type, because it's the donor blood type. Every human being will accept O negative. You can give it to an infant that's what hospitals do. They'll take O negative, give it to whoever needs it in an emergency. They don't need to know what their blood type is because it doesn't resist it. But every other, the positive as well as A and B, are mutations on top of O. And the Rh negative. Only about, still in Asia and most parts of the world, there is no Rh negative.
Wow.
They don't. That's another thing. It's politicized.
Yep.
It's politicized. They don't want the blood banks. Don't they ask for it? They don't. They won't tell you. You have to dig for yourself to find out the facts. They're there, but you have to do the digging. And then people talk about reptilian blood and all this stuff. Frankly, that doesn't work for me. It just.
Have you ever seen personally somebody's blood? Because I did a DNA testing through like Ancestry.com, and to kind of see where I'm from, and there was one, I think 1% Asian, which really kind of threw me off, but which would have been India. But have you ever seen physically or somebody that tested with
RH
negative?
Well, lots of people. I mean, like I'm saying, the about 30% of the Basques have Rh negative.
So 30% of the okay.
About 30 to 50% of the Canary Islanders and North Africans that are Amazigh, that are the Berbers, have Rh negative. And the Canary Islanders Rh negative, that's an ancestral blood type. It goes, and I'm talking now about the mummies that they've tested.
Wow.
That's their blood type. And then they go to the modern population and they find similar, but it's changed over time because O negative is recessive to positive.
Okay.
If either parent has positive, the child comes out positive. Both have to have Rh negative to produce Rh negative. So it's going to go out of the population as we mix, which is too bad because without that blood type, we're going to have trouble with transfusions down the road.
Wow.
It's not. People try to make it like this alien, this weird thing. It's not.
Right.
It's just in a small percentage because it's very ancient, and it was only in these tribes that survived these cataclysms. The Basques, the Europeans have scratched their head over the Basques since ever 10,000 years. They don't know who they are, And both of them, though, the Berbers and the Basques, isolate themselves. They don't want anything to do with other cultures.
Really?
They resist, both of them, the same way. They both have the same movements going, the autonomy movements going on the same way. They don't want to be overrun. They don't want their cultures changed. They're very traditional. Of course, Islam doesn't really tolerate that.
Well, yeah.
Again.
Well, they are under Islam.
Yeah.
So how many times have you been to the Canary Islands?
No, I haven't been myself.
Oh, you've never been?
I just do the research. No, I do the research. That's the beauty now of the internet is I don't have to take all the time and the expense and everything of traveling because I have everything right here.
Right.
I mean, I will go, and I'm going to go to Mexico City probably in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I will go to various places. Actually, I want to go to Malta. There's just some places that I get a feeling for, and also I want to go to Peru at one point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, I don't want to go there right now, but I wanted to bring that up. And there's a city in the very westernmost part of Egypt called Siwa, which is a Berber city.
Okay.
The Berbers are still there. They still dress traditionally. The Egyptians pretty much ignore them. Some of the early pharaohs were Berbers. You can see it in the mummies. Some of the mummies, you can look at, some of those mummies, and they're not Arabs and they're not Black Africans. And but they were a mixture. And actually, the Berbers don't really look at skin color as that much of a marker of anything. They only care. You're a Berber if you speak the language, if you know the culture, if you were born into it, because there are Black Berbers, there are white ones, there are Arabs. It's everything. They don't really care about that part of it. That's Siwa?
Yes, Siwa.
You can see it. Very, very ancient.
Yeah.
Some of the earliest temples and shrines were there.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
They can still be visited.
Well, we have about 4 minutes left. I can't believe how fast this hour is going. It's like I can't.
But we have to have you back because you're leaving us a lot of little teasers and sound bites.
Yeah, yeah, and
A pleasure. Of course, this is my passion. So, I'm ready to go for hours. But
I know. I know.
you guys
I looked down. I was
can
like,
do it. We can do it another time and pick up any threads that you want to pick up.
well,
We didn't really get into the whole megalithic thing and the Great Pyramid and all that, which leaves something for the future.
Oh no,
Yeah.
this is great. And I want to, before we go, I want you to talk a little bit about, just give us some more teasers about the upcoming book, the second volume titled Cosmic Ancestry. Has it been released yet, or is it?
No, it's not released yet. The publisher has it. It's going to be released. This book, I tell you where I'm at now with this whole process is I want to break down these partitions, the compartmentalization between ancient astronaut, ancient alien, and modern UFO. It seems like there's two camps that don't really communicate that much.
Right.
They're in their fields.
True.
Whereas this thing needs to be integrated because it's a continuum. From our ancient past, when people actually had contact with the aliens, to now, we can't have these things separated. So I'm bringing UFOs research into it, along with the ancient alien, along with modern space research, because it all goes together. And we tend to compartmentalize and specialize things. And I want to take this general view and get a vision here.
Good.
Because where is this going?
I hear you. No.
Really, a lot of people now are interested in ancient history.
Yeah,
and a lot are also interested in UFOs.
Well, which is funny because most people don't care about like U.S. history, world history, but the ancient history is becoming so popular, and I think it did help having Ancient Aliens on History Channel and MUFON with Hangar One and so many other shows that now make it accessible to where we can watch it, and now more people than ever talk about this stuff, and they're not afraid to even think about it.
Yeah, and then
I totally agree. That has helped. I will be on Ancient Aliens this year.
Awesome.
I can't wait.
I know. I
Yeah,
can't
we
wait.
did the
either.
taping a couple of months ago, so I'm going to be on this year's.
Awesome.
Well,
But I really enjoyed our conversation. Happy to talk with you guys anytime.
oh, please, no, the door is open, so you can come in anytime. We'll book you for another time.
Yeah.
Are you going to be speaking anywhere, or that people might want?
No, I don't have any speaking engagements. I'm really I do a lot of posting. Anybody can, Will Hart, author. You can go to my Facebook page, and I do a lot of posting every day, and communicate with me that way.
Beautiful.
And we definitely so appreciate you and taking the time out of your day and sharing your information with us and our listeners and our UBN family here. So for anybody that missed the show, come in halfway and you want to know what's going on, what we're talking about, go to iTunes, iHeartRadio, and look up Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. And just type in Will Hart. You'll find it there. And probably the next day or two, the video will definitely be up on our YouTube channel. That's Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. And I guarantee this is going to be another one that gets a lot of views because people love this stuff.
Well, and also for the people who are on iHeartRadio and the other more auditory kind of venues, the great thing about going to the YouTube channel is Tony's great about pulling up all of the sites that Will was talking about, so you get to visually see them, and that makes a big difference, I think, too.
And
to
some
your
of them I
audience.
just couldn't spell. So that's one reason I was like, oh God, I don't even want to interrupt
But that was
him.
really nice of you, Will. That was just sneak in, and it's spelled this way.
Yeah,
so we're like,
thank
appreciate you
'Cause
for
I was
that.
Like, oh my God, I would not even got that.
And of course, you can go buy his books too. Remember, he's the author of The Genesis Race, Our Extraterrestrial DNA, Cosmic Ancestry, which is coming out in 2016, and Alien Civilizations, all available at Amazon.com.
And we thank you so much, Will.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jeff. Thank you.
And we're going to take a little break before we have our next guest on. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And again, Eddie, another great guest. We love having people like Will on, people that are passionate about what they do and put the time and effort into proving and not just making it a suggestion or a theory.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of theories, but that takes the time to either travel or do the research.
And what we also appreciate too, we're really lucky we get some phenomenal guests here that are world renowned. And Will's another great example of he puts the blood, sweat, and tears into it, but he puts the heart, the soul, and the spirit into it too. And he brings all of that together. And of course, that makes for a great guest here on Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie.
Amen, brother.
That's right.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We have another phenomenal guest. If you're like,
Oh my
yeah,
God!
if
I'm so
you like,
excited.
angel medium, I think you're going to enjoy the next guest.
Just those two words hyphenated together.
Angel,
Angel,
medium.
medium. Whoop whoop.
Yeah, we're going to have Stuart Pierce on the show. We keep. What's funny is he's English, and we keep wanting to call him Patrick Stewart.
And Stuart Little.
Yeah.
And Stuart. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get
But
it.
he's
we'll
the
get it
one
right.
and only Stuart Pierce.
That's right. So, all right, don't go anywhere. This is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
We'll be right back.